let's go. Episode, I think we're on like 41 or something. Myles, I
Oh,
appreciate
wow.
you. Thank you for coming on for the podcast. I really appreciate it. I know you're a super busy guy, so it means a lot. I'm excited to have you, and welcome to Skorch the Fears, my man.
I love it. I love the name. That's awesome. Skorch the Fears. Wow.
Thanks, man. So I always start just with the classic Steve Trang question, like so how'd you get into real estate? Like what's the beginning of the journey?
I love it. I love it. Dang, I need to become a household name. The Steve
That's what I'm
Train.
trying to do, dude. I'm trying to
I
make you a
know.
household name. That's what I'm doing here.
Oh, please. No, that's awesome. Yeah, Steve Train is the man. Yeah, so what got me into real estate? Pretty simple. Kind of like a lot
Wait,
of
I'm sorry. I
people.
screw this up. My bad, my bad. I always screw this up. What are you doing right now? Like, what does your business look like right now? I got to start with that, and then I ask you how you get into real estate. So what are
Okay.
you doing right now? What's your business look like right now?
Yeah, so my business right now involves like multiple aspects. And I think I've really figured out a better way to describe instead of just going into all the different ways. I'm 29 years old, so I'm still in my 20s. I'm married, 3 kids,
Damn, I
and
did not know you were 29. That's
yeah,
crazy.
wait,
I thought you were
how
older than that.
oh, how old do you think I
I
was?
thought you
No,
were in your mid 30s.
nah, dude, I'm not even into my 30s yet, man.
Damn,
So,
bro. All right.
um, so yeah, so my ultimate goal right now, honestly, is to build multiple streams of income. Now, I know that seems, very cliche, but I truly am building businesses that are just paying me with either A, things that I already like to do anyway, or B, um, essentially just things that I'm building that just continue to pay me. So that involves a lot of different things. Some are a little bit more management intensive than others, so like short-term rental or wholesaling. Some are a little bit more passive. Like it was kind of cool today. I got a pretty cool check from an affiliate, basically a company that provides a service that I use and love, that I talk about all the time. And they know that I do, and they also know that I have a coaching program and a community. And they just love just kind of like my story and who I am as a person. And they just really wanted to partner with me because I just promoted them all the time anyway. And then I have a podcast again, so all these different things. But so I just got a check from them and I didn't do anything. It was so crazy. My wife like looked at
Love
the
it.
email and she's like, dang, honey, like what the heck? And I'm like, wow, this is crazy. So I'm just trying to create a lot of different income streams right now, obviously. So that, as I do get into my 30s and mid 30s and, later 30s, I can really attack larger projects, but I'm not necessarily so worried about where income is going, projects that just take more time but have sort of bigger ROIs.
Love it.
So anyway, that's kind of
So what are you doing right now, though? So wholesaling, as you said,
yeah,
I've
okay.
seen some flips you've been doing, I feel like, on
Yeah,
Instagram.
so right. So I do buy and hold. So anything that I can buy creatively. My first rental property I bought creative finance. It was a homeowner who basically had a tenant that wasn't paying rent, or an investor owner that had a tenant that wasn't paying rent but lived out of state. So I bought that property, creative finance, seller finance
Where do you
actually.
live?
I lived in Greenville. I live in Greenville, South Carolina.
Okay, nice.
So anyway, so buy and hold, but that includes like long-term rental, short-term rental. So some people, obviously, my Instagram is kind of blowing up right now with that post that I made where I basically bought a bunch of appliances, refrigerator, stove, dryer, washer, like all this for like $1,500, all in really great condition. And that's for the short-term rental that I'm buying at 0% interest, zero down,
Love it.
um, in Greenville. So anyway, long-term rental, short-term rental, fix and flip. Of course, I'm not doing a ton of that. That's not really my focus to scale that because I already make pretty good income wholesaling, and they're essentially the same type of income. They're still taxed the same way, so I don't want to be. And they also are also highly, it requires a lot of management. But essentially all of that wholesaling, fix and flip,
Love it.
buy and hold, the whole 9 yards.
Cool.
So
Yeah, I love it. Yeah, I'm so
yeah.
much of the same opinion of like if I'm gonna wholesale, like I feel like flipping and wholesaling, doing both. I mean, more active income is great, but like getting that passive income going is
For sure.
so freaking important. So all
Yeah.
right, now I'm going back to my original question. So how did
Yeah.
you get into real estate?
Yeah. So I got into real estate because of COVID-19, actually. So
Okay.
I was a wedding commercial photographer before real estate. So I've traveled all over the world, Thailand, Malaysia,
Hmm.
Canada, Singapore,
It's pretty sick.
Mexico, DR, all over. Number of people know me from Netflix. I was a photographer for Love is Blind on Netflix, shot for Uber Eats. We were tons of wedding. I was just pretty strong in the photography game.
Okay.
But when COVID hit, all of that disappeared, right? I mean, you weren't meeting up with people to take photos. You weren't seeing clients. Everyone was, it's pandemic, everything shut down. So,
Right.
um, I had just basically got married and had a baby, and it was a scary time, right? I mean, I didn't have a ton of savings. I was just sort of like a hustler with photography, doing great, but it was still very transactional and no like reoccurring revenue or income in that sense. So everything just disappeared. So it kind of forced me into real estate through prayer, through really just kind of discerning what the next step was, but also taking some action, right? So I didn't just sit around and kind of wait for something. I just was like, man, I got to figure something out. It was just interesting. It kind of came to me randomly, a video on the Breakfast Club on YouTube, and I heard about
Interesting.
wholesaling real estate.
That was on
Uh,
the Breakfast Club?
I know, isn't that
Isn't that
so?
weird? Who was on the Breakfast Club who was wholesaling real estate?
Dude, I don't even know the guy's name, but that's why I share this story all the time about how crazy that is, because the
That's
Breakfast Club, if
nuts.
anyone knows, I honestly listen to it. So I do a lot of personal development. So Steve Trang. So I do a lot of personal development. Robert Kiyosaki, Jim
Right.
Rohn, Jonathan Maxwell, Darren Hardy, Les Brown. I mean, I can go on and on and on, right?
Right.
But I always tell people, you want to stimulate your mind in other ways. You don't want to like just be 100% in one thing. Stimulate your brain, and because you can actually learn and just get ideas from other basically creative outlets. And I'm obviously looking at this at a more intellectual approach, but basically the Breakfast Club, if anyone knows, the Breakfast Club is essentially like they interview like rappers and like
Yeah, I was about to
guys
say
that are just
people,
like,
rappers, and like actors and
yeah,
actresses and stuff like that.
yeah. But a lot of it is, guys that are like, hey man, you know what I'm saying, man, just stuff that's like kind of
Yeah,
like,
they're kicking the shit a lot.
pretty much that kind of vibe. But here's the interesting thing, right? Anyone wise would say, well, first of all, you can't judge someone based on how they talk. And if these guys are making millions of dollars, even though they're rappers, some of these guys make millions and millions of dollars. There is something to be said at the level of expertise and skill and creativity that they produce that creates that kind of income. You may not be able to take 99% of what they say, but even just that 1%, that's something that's like, man, that's interesting that they approach things in that way, because they're a high level performer. So that's kind of how I live
Right.
my life, is that I don't count anything out in terms of what can I learn from someone who's excelling at whatever it is that they're doing. So anyway, I listen to the Breakfast Club because it's just totally different than personal development or like
Right.
real
Right. Right.
estate.
It's entertainment, and that's good too.
It's entertainment, but I know that I could learn, and isn't that funny? By doing that, I came across wholesaling real estate, right?
Right.
Um, so anyway, yeah, I forgot the guy's name, dude, but he was basically like, talking about how he like, makes all this money with like, no credit, no
Right.
money, and all this stuff. Obviously, the tagline that gets you involved in like, what is real estate? And I'm like, dude, no money, no credit. I mean, this sounds like the
Love it.
perfect opportunity, because COVID had just happened.
So this is February
This is January of 2020.
20. Okay,
I
January
remember because
2020.
that is exactly when I heard. I heard about wholesaling real estate in January of 2020. And I remember I studied it all January. And then I remember hitting the ground in February. And then I got my first two deals. They were actually back to back, and two completely different deals and sellers, but they ended up being the same checks. They were both $11,000 deals, and that was in April. And I still have those photos. Everyone knows
Nice.
I've been documenting my journey since the beginning. It's on Instagram, on my social media, and everything. So, yeah, over $20,000. It took me 4 months to
How
get.
much did that break your brain? I love asking people that when they get their first deal in real
Dude,
estate
it
and
was
being like,
unbelievable.
bro.
Yeah, I mean, the most I had ever made, and I was a pretty well-paid photographer, but the most I'd ever made with photography, like at like one gig, was like $5 to $6 grand. Like I had a
Right.
wedding with like 5,300 or $5,200, and anyway, so like that was huge, because that wasn't on a regular basis. That was like one or two deals I've ever had like that as a photographer in my entire 5-year career. So to make over $20,000, and like I never left my like bedroom essentially. I mean, it was just pretty ridiculous. Like I didn't go to the closing. I didn't go, the typical
Right.
wholesale virtual. I did go look at the property. Obviously, now I don't. It's very rare that I'll go actually look at properties
Same.
because you build up enough of a buyer relationship, you build up enough of confidence to understand how to get a property under contract with a seller, even over the phone. You don't even really need to go look at the
Right.
property a lot of times, especially if you can outsource someone going out there and taking photos. And if you have a really good buyer relationship, they can actually just walk it for you and just kind of let you know if they can buy it or not. And you just can do a lot of this stuff without even being present there. So anyway, but that was the journey, man.
That was the start.
Oh, it was the start, and I never looked back, dude. It blew
I
my
love
mind.
it. So
Crazy,
I
crazy.
love it. So I kind of want to go back because it's interesting because I remember, like the world shutting down. I'm curious if you got this. I actually started basically when you started too. I started, I think, February 2020.
Nice.
So I remember being told by a lot of people, like, man, like, I don't know if this is the right time. It seems like kind of the world's ending.
Mm.
Like maybe you should wait till, the economy recovers because we thought like the economy was going to the poop hole. So what did you get any of that? Did you get any negative feedback from anybody in your life? And then like, how'd you deal with that?
I'm going to be honest, man. And this is just my perspective and my story, but no. And that's only because when I see an opportunity, I just get in the zone and
Mm,
I'm very much not a consumer. Not saying that you were, because obviously you can get it from friends and people, whatnot, but I don't really tell or talk to people about what I'm doing until I'm
mm,
just like, they pretty much just see the success, right? They always say, like, basically work in silence and then let your work talk or let your
I
results
like
speak,
it.
type of thing. So, like, when I heard about wholesaling, I wasn't telling, dude, I was like, dude, first of all, I'm just so focused on trying to make this like work. I'm not talking to my mom, my dad, my friend. I mean, my parents, I mean, people didn't know, what I was even doing until I had already made like $30,000, $40,000, within a
Okay,
couple of
interesting.
months. So it was already like, dang, like it was like this works type of thing when people saw that I was doing it. So they couldn't even, I mean, there was no even discussion of like, oh, this is the wrong time or is this going to work or not? Dude, it's
Right.
like, no, it worked. Right. And I always tell people it's never the horse, it's the jockey. So if someone else can make it
I
work,
love
then
that saying. Say that one more time.
it's never the horse, it's the jockey.
Love
Meaning,
it.
if the horse can go and you didn't win the race, it wasn't the dude. It's the same thing with like golf. Like, you take someone with a golf club and they hit the ball and they look at the golf club. I love watching like when people they like look at the club or like, dude, it wasn't the club. Like, you can give that club to like Tiger Woods or something, right? And dude, like
Right.
literally like hole in
Be
one,
fine.
right? It's crazy. So it's never the thing, right? So because if it works, it works. You just got to figure out how to make it work for you. So that's number one. I had blinders on essentially because I just knew that it worked. And I guess it's somewhat naive, but it worked in my favor, right? It's kind of like being a child. Sometimes children have such a massive imagination that when you're an adult, because you are so focused on what is possible, whereas kids just look at imagination and really almost anything is possible. A lot of times as adults, we sort of tell ourselves the story that we can't do something before we even try, whereas kids generally try until they either figure out, dang, I can't do this, or they just keep going, right? And they're kind of naive in how they approach things. Like a kid who's like, I'm going to be the
Right.
president of the United States, right? And someone's like, all right, dude, but there are presidents, right? So somebody's going to make it happen. But you telling a kid that he's not going to be able to do it. I mean, he thinks he can do it. It's having that imagination of like, dude, wholesaling's real. People are doing it. So it didn't click that we were in a recession or that I knew COVID happened and I was like, okay, well, this is a way to make money right now. And I didn't even think about necessarily the economy, so to speak. I just was focused on, okay, learning the skills and the steps to actually execute a wholesale deal. Let's figure out and let's do it.
I like it. So you were just talking about imagination and like being in the zone to the point where you're not even thinking about it. That I think is the difference between like I think you really hit on like the difference between someone successful and someone who isn't in the sense of like stop thinking so much. Like I tell people like a lot of times and like just some of like it seems to me almost like some of the people in this business, like the people who are almost stupider just because they like are willing to do it. Not saying like either of
Yeah.
us are stupid, but just
No,
like
no,
the
no, trust
point
me.
of being
I love
and
it.
we're like just being like, oh, I'm just gonna do it. I'm not gonna think about it.
Right.
How do you feel? How do you feel for somebody or like what advice have you given to people who are like thinking too much, not in the zone, over analyzing? Is there like a way to switch into the zone, you think? Was there anything that like in your like when you were growing up that like made you more likely to get in the zone? Like what do you got anything like on that?
Yeah, no, I think it's a great question. And, I used to say like cliche answers and whatnot. Like, you just gotta try and believe in yourself and yada, yada, all these different things. But here's the reality, man. Honestly, look, at the end of the day, everyone can't be as great as they see other people that are to them.
Mhm.
Right now, great is subjective, obviously, because great to someone else may not be great to someone else. But the idea is, I mean, let's just be real. I mean, I think I just try and be a lot more honest nowadays about how life works, because I've just realized no matter how many times I try to make it seem like, oh, this is the way and this is how you do it, there's no how can I say, there's no magic bullet, right? For how you can change how you operate. But the one thing you can do is have self-awareness that is much more powerful than necessarily trying to just be like someone else. So the reality is you just got to be self-aware. Some people, they need to actually analyze to feel comfortable or to be in the right mental state to be able to execute whatever it is that they're going to execute, because that's just how they operate. Whereas some people, what I like to say, like for myself, I like to jump and then build my wings on the way down. But that's how I operate. I have self-awareness to know that I do very well under pressure. I actually operate a lot of times even better. That's why I tend to find myself kind of sometimes a little overwhelmed, but that's just because I'm a growth human in the sense where I like to excel like crazy at everything I do. And the only way to do that is to be challenged, because when you're comfortable, you're not excelling, right? You're already comfortable, you're good, you know what you're doing. But when you're trying to get to this next level, you really have to put yourself in an uncomfortable situation. Whereas, not everyone operates in that way. Like some people really don't do well when they're under pressure. And and that's okay. You look at a business, right? Like a company, every person that works within that company has a certain response to pressure. And it's actually what allows them to be and operate at their best selves at whatever position they do, right? Like if you're a CEO and you're having to answer to a lot of really challenging, hard questions. I mean, there's a reason why you're a CEO, right? Whereas someone else who cannot do that, and they need to be told kind of what they need to do because they like things to be organized and they just like to execute on what my job is. That doesn't make them worse or better or whatever. It's just being self-aware. That's just how you operate. So my answer to your question about someone who thinks too much is have self-awareness. If you know that you are someone who really needs to kind of know, you need to know enough information to be able to take action. Well, have self-awareness to know that, okay, get better at just trusting the fact that you do know enough to take a step. You don't need to see the whole staircase to get to the top. You just need to see that first step, right? So if you're someone that thinks a lot, just have self-awareness to know that you do that, and then just take the action that you can take rather than just continuing to think and think and think and think and think, right? Now, I don't
Okay.
necessarily speak to the people that don't think as much, because that's, they don't think as much. They just take action, right? But they need to obviously be aware that, what can go up really fast can fall just as fast, right? So for someone who just moves very quickly, you have to understand too that you have to take some time to evaluate, because sometimes you can move so fast and you can go fast nowhere, right? And you want to
Right.
make sure that you are guiding your footsteps as you are moving, and operating in that way. But for someone who thinks a lot, get around doers. You're going to think a lot. That's just self-awareness. That's how you are. But if you're around people that just get things done, it'll encourage you to just take more steps and do the necessary thinking you need to do about this or that. But then just understand that, have faith and trust that one step, all you got to do is look at the next one. All you got to do is look at the next one. Just keep taking those steps.
I
So
love it. So I love that. And then okay. So I want to keep hearing your journey. So you do it, you get your first deal in 2 months. That's pretty damn impressive. That's really
4 months.
quick
Four
too.
months. Oh yeah, no,
Oh,
4 months.
4 months. Okay,
Oh
that's
yeah.
the same as me. I got mine in the first 4 months. But so you get your first deal. How do you keep building your business? Like you eventually joined Sub 2 at some point. Like keep
Yeah.
going with your story.
Yeah. So, and gosh, and sometimes things are such a blur because I just go and there's so much that I'm doing. So, if I can remember, I don't remember all the timelines because there's a lot that's happened, right? I got hit by a drunk driver, got my leg
Yeah.
amputated. I joined Sub 2. I've done so many deals. I mean, there's
I
so many
was
things.
gonna ask like which way if you
So
were in sub two. I feel
yeah, I
like you
definitely
were.
was. Yeah,
Okay.
I was because I remember Sub 2. That was one of the beautiful things about that community is there was just so much support that I didn't even know I had at that time. I was definitely in Sub 2 when it was at the very beginning stages because that's kind of what helped with a good bit of the support is I was very known in the community because I was always asking questions. It was when there
Right.
was only 100 or so people on a Zoom. Now there's
Right.
you got to get lucky to get a question in
Now
nowadays.
it's ridiculous. Now I never get my questions answered ever because
Right,
he's like, you've been in this 2 years, Jonah. Get the hell out of here. I'm like, all right,
right,
well, whatever. It is what it is. Like,
right,
it's all
right,
good.
exactly. So I was in Sub 2. I think I had joined Sub 2 probably about 5 to 6 months into my deal,
And
or
why'd
so
you
five
do
to
that?
six months into my huh?
And why'd you do that?
So what happened is I had probably done close to about I actually remember I was getting close to about oh no, I had just done about 50 to $60,000 within about um 5 to 6 months, 5 to 6
Oh
months.
yeah, bro. That's sick.
Well, so I remember, and the reason why I'm saying that is just because like the story was I was pretty much able to do about six figures in about 6 to 7 months.
Nice.
That happened when I was in Sub 2 because I had basically started trying to really learn a ton of creative finance, and my wholesale deals kind of slowed down because I was so focused on trying to like
Right.
find like a lease option or a owner finance or subject to, and I just stopped doing this, the standard motivated seller who just has a property that they either inherited or
Right.
that has some distress or whatever the case is. So I realized like, man, dude, I'm not making, I haven't done a deal in a little while. And a little while was probably like a month and a half or two, but I was used to doing at least already at that point about, 1 to 2 deals here and there each month. And it was going on 2 months. And I'm like, okay, and I remember this because this is like a thing in Pace's community is like, or in Sub 2 is I basically told everyone, or I really told Pace, I'm no longer going to show up to Zooms. I'm no longer going to essentially actually, yeah, just be on Zooms because Zooms were getting so long, right? Like, and I would essentially just sit on Zooms and listen and listen and learn, but it would just eat up so much time out of the day. And then
Right.
after you learn all this stuff, it's not like you're really in the zone to go start doing all these calls and I
It
like to.
becomes too much too. You start like, I mean, what you start learning about is super interesting, but then you're like, but like, I'm not dealing with this right now.
Right,
Like
exactly, exactly.
I do not need to hear about at this very moment necessarily
Yeah,
like what how to find lease option tenants or like whatever. Like that's
exactly,
not what I need at
exactly.
this moment. That can happen in
Right.
those things.
Right. So I got off the Zoom and I just said, you know what, I'm going to put my blinders on again and focus. And then I ended up doing that. I think it was a $30,000 deal. So I ended up doing this like $30,000 deal. It's one deal that netted like 30 grand.
Love
And
it.
then I came back to Sub 2 and I did this whole post about it and got all people fired up. But it was a great example of how it's just like, guys, like there's a lot to learn on these Zooms and whatnot, but maybe just take a moment to just stop learning and listening and learning and listening, and then just go do what you already know to get your deals. And after that, I'm going to be honest, it still wasn't until another year and a half until I did my first creative finance deal, because basically about um, about 8 or 9 months into my business is when I got hit by the drunk driver.
Right.
And then I was out for another 6 months because of
So
that.
go into that real quick about like what happened.
Yeah, so I was just coming home from the gym and I had been working a ton. I think I can't remember where I was. Maybe I was at some kind of event or something like that. But I was just on the road and I was just doing a bunch of stuff. And I hadn't been in the gym in a couple of days. And I usually go, pretty much either every other day or every day. And I hadn't been in the gym for like 4 or 5 days, which I know for most people like, dude, come on. But to me, that was a lot. So
Yeah.
I got home and it was like the weekend. I just told my wife if I could go to the gym, and it was late at night, which I never go to the gym at night. It's like one of the first things I do when I wake up. But anyway, I went to the gym, got back out of the gym. It was around 6-ish p.m. and I was on the road. I was on the phone with a buddy of mine, Milton. And it was traumatic for him because the phone was on the holder or whatever. But when I got hit by the drunk driver, the phone flew off to the other side of the car, so he heard everything because it was still on
That's
throughout the
crazy.
whole entire thing. So he has, he had a little bit of trauma through that. I remember him telling me how he had to really work through a lot of that because, I mean, it was pretty gnarly. But essentially, yeah, I was hit by a drunk driver head on, going 91 miles per hour in a 35. And yeah, just
He was
almost
going 91 miles per hour.
yeah, she was drunk going 91
That's
and just hit
crazy. Wait,
the car.
where this was in South Carolina?
Yeah, this is South Carolina.
Okay. That's
Yep.
crazy. That's wild in a 35.
Yeah.
That's pretty freaking gnarly. So what happened? I know you were in the hospital for a while. Like what was the
Yeah, man.
result of that?
Yeah, I woke up and I mean there was a lot in between all of that, but essentially I was in the hospital and every limb was wrapped. I had like a feeding tube, couldn't move anything. I had so many cords connected to, I mean, it was basically like being on life support. I mean, they're basically just trying to keep me alive, essentially.
Mhm.
Just being pumped with all types of IVs and chemicals and pills and all this stuff just to kind of keep my heart rate going, right? So
Right.
I was kind of on that. So I was in the ICU, and it's like intensive critical unit, so I was in the ICU for a couple of weeks. And yeah, just every single day, which felt like years, right? Because when all you do is just sit in the bed from the minute you open your eyes and you just sit and don't move, I mean, that feels like years, right? And that's like day after day after day. You're just awake and you just can't move, but you just have all these cords in you and you're just kind of like on life support, honestly.
How long were you there for?
Yeah, I think in the hospital in total for about 3 months, I
That's
think.
crazy.
Or
That's a
no,
long fucking
2 months,
time.
maybe a month and a half to 2 months. Sorry, a month and a half
That's
to
still a crazy long time. Even
Oh,
like,
yeah. Oh,
like it's not a if two
no.
months versus 3 months is still pretty gnarly,
No,
man.
no, no. Oh,
Like,
yeah. Oh, yeah, I lived
um,
there. Oh, yeah, everyone knew me
were you
there. I lived there.
conscious? Like, were you like? Did you
Yeah.
know what was going on around you, or
Maybe not the first, like, couple of days, but, like, after about a week or so, I was pretty kinda like, "Dang, this is crazy." My leg
damn,
was already
I'm
amputated.
so
Yeah.
like in pain.
Yeah, I
Uh,
mean, it was pretty bad. I mean, I had a blood clot in my amputation that was like the worst pain, and I have a very high pain tolerance, and it was, I mean, no one has ever heard me scream at the top of my lung other than these, nurses at the hospital because it was so painful. It was
right.
crazy. They ended up cutting my amputation back open, and then this huge blood clot just like rolled out of it.
Damn.
So it was like pressing against my bone and
Because you
skin.
had your leg amputated, right?
Yeah, so I got my leg amputated, and it happens. But basically, yeah, there ended up being a blood clot through the surgery.
That's
But
crazy.
so I was back in the surgery again, and that kind of delayed the time. But so yeah, after that, it was just learning how to walk again, talk again, and I still have crazy pain from it even still today. That was like about 2 years ago. But pretty much
Damn.
every day, my foot is always in pain. Like even right now, it's crazy sore. My hand is crazy sore because my arm. Most people think my leg just got amputated, but I have multiple injuries. So most people don't see it all the time because I'm just out and about doing a bunch, so it doesn't seem like it. But basically, my good leg, quote unquote, has foot drop. So you don't see it unless you see me in person. But I have this huge brace on my leg. It's
Damn.
black, and I wear black socks, so that's why you don't generally see it all the time. But it basically keeps my foot up because without that brace, my foot would just drop and I would trip over it. That's why it's called foot drop. And then in my arm, a lot of times when people see it, they think I was like in a burn. I was like a burn victim because it's skin graft, the entire arm,
Right.
about 80% of it. They removed a good bit of my muscle, so my fingers don't move at all. And there's just a plastic big wrap that just holds my fingers at least like just flat. So yeah, dude, every day I wake up with no leg on my left leg and have to put on, all my stuff for my prosthetic. And then I have to put on the brace for my foot and then my arm and just, it's like getting ready for war every single day.
Which
Right.
is
So
so wild. When you were in the hospital, like what was going through your head? Because like I can't even imagine what I would be thinking while
I
that's
know.
happening. Like what was going through your head?
Yeah, dude, I don't know. Life is weird, right? I mean, it's just, and that's not to be boastful, but it's always so, I mean, I've done so many interviews, right? Just about the story
Right.
and just what I'm doing and whatnot. And every time I tell it, it's just people are like, bro, I just can't even like, how are you like that? And I don't know. I don't know what all attributes to that other than just having a solid faith and then just really strong personal development. So just to take like 30 seconds, I think it's important to note I spent about a decade of very intense personal development because when I was in college, I actually got started in network marketing. And if anyone has been in network marketing, or most people know as MLM, a big part of growing a network marketing company is personal development. Your teams being developed personally to be able to grow their teams and to do sales and all these things. So you take a kid for 10 years and all he's listening to on YouTube and podcasts and books on how to be your best self, how to get through challenges, the mindset, attitude, having the right attitude, just straight like mindset and everything. I mean, you just become I mean, dude, almost impenetrable and unstoppable in a way, just because at the end of the day, like your mind is more powerful than your body. So you could take my legs away, my leg away, my arm away. Um, but with my mind, I mean, I'm just going to figure out, another way to make something happen. Right. So in the hospital, to answer your question, yes, of course, I'm a human being. I did feel kind of like, dang, this is crazy. Like, this kind of sucks. The thing that killed me the most was two things. A, not being able to see my daughter because I just had her and I couldn't see my daughter because it was COVID still and they wouldn't allow
That's
any
hard.
kids there.
That's
So
the hard part. I forgot that this is
yeah,
right during COVID, so nobody could go
yeah,
into the hospital.
yeah.
Could
So
your
she
wife see you?
So my wife could see me, but only for like a couple of hours, and I can only have one visitor a day.
Mhm.
So it was huge when she did come up, but sometimes she just couldn't come because of other things. So I just wouldn't have any visitor, or maybe like my mom might come to bring something, but then because of that, no one else could come, and it was only for a couple hours, and it was at a certain time, and then you're just there by yourself, all day, every day, just kind of dealing with your own emotions. So, not to take up too much time on that, but yeah, there were some things you had to walk through. Were there times where I kind of thought I wish I had just died? I mean, of course, right? I mean, let's just be honest. It's pretty gnarly, but it's the truth. Because the pain is so severe. I mean, you're going to have those
Right.
thoughts. Man, if I had just passed away, I just wouldn't feel any of this stuff, right? So, you have that for a moment, and then that's when faith and strength and everything kicks in, and you just had to realize, like, dude, this is just really, really tough. It's crazy pain, but there's a promise for the pain, as we say, right? And the idea is that I'm going to leverage this. I'm going to use this, right? I love what Eric Thomas always says. He always talks about how you're gonna quit because you're in pain. He was like, man, he always talks about if you're in pain, you might as well get a reward out of that, right? You're already in pain. You might as well get a reward, right? And that's what he always talks about. He's like, don't quit. And that's kind of similarly the idea is that, I mean, I had already gone through all this pain and I'm already in the pain. Shoot, I might as well get a reward out of this. I might as well, create a story. I might as well let this thing propel me, and I might as well let this be an impact, rather than a setback, right? So like that was kind of the mindset is like, all right, screw it, dude. I just need to figure out what all the things I need to do to physically get better so I can just get back to just crushing life. And I think that was just my motivation to just kind of be who I am today and where I'm at now, right? It was more so it became a motivation to kind of just
I
encourage others and myself.
I love it. You keep talking about faith, and this is like a pattern I've been seeing throughout real estate investors in general. Whether it's faith, it sounds like whether it's religious faith or like for me, faith just means faith in the universe type of thing or whatever you call it. But
Right.
like talk about what you mean by faith or what your faith is and like how that's helped you in life and then also with the whole accident and stuff like that.
Yeah, no, I love it, man. I mean, yeah, my faith is rooted in Christ and just knowing the story of who Jesus was, an actual person. And I know we hear God and all these things, but an actual person like Jesus, and really learning how to live life the way Jesus would. We have these bracelets, right, that say, what would Jesus do? And again, the thing is that it's very clear that when you live a life centered around how Jesus did and what he calls us to, which is be more like him, you just have a better life. Isn't that interesting? But when you just kind of let the world guide your decisions, that is very dangerous because of just the idea of everyone's idea of what is good and bad and wrong and whatever is very subjective to themselves. Whereas Jesus has a very other mindset. So it's dying to oneself. It's the idea of him dying on the cross. It's a very sacrificial. It's not about you. It's about someone else. And if we all in this world were like that, wouldn't it literally the entire world, just literally so many things would not, we wouldn't have so much of what we have if we were always thinking about someone else rather than ourselves, right? And that's the call, is for us to die to kind of our selfish ways and our me. And then there's other things, right? Like forgiveness, right? Like the Lord, like Christ forgave us for our sins and how we were. So modeling that frees you. Isn't that interesting? But the world's not teaching you that, right? And what I mean by that is that was one of the things. Like when I got hit by the drunk driver, I've never felt any sort of ill feelings towards her, right? And that could be gnarly to someone who doesn't have that faith. And I would get that. And that's why I'm just, thankful that I was rooted with that foundation, because if for all the sins and the things that I do, the Lord could still have such a just impeccable, just strong, intense love for me. And I can, and I'm able to emulate that towards someone else. It actually drives me to do what happened, which is I started to see that this girl, even though she hit me as a drunk driver and I lost my leg and I have all these injuries now for life and all this other crazy stuff, it was an accident. I must be able to forgive her, because at the end of the day, you may not have put anyone, Jonah, in the hospital and had their leg amputated, but I promise you, you've probably amputated someone emotionally. You probably have amputated someone mentally, spiritually, whatever case is, and so have I. We all have done things essentially that we didn't either plan to do or desired to do, but it happened. And would you not have wanted that person to forgive you if you knew that it wasn't intentional? So if you did, then how could you not give and extend that forgiveness to someone else? And again, that's a very scriptural way of thinking about it, because the world would say, dude, it's totally okay for you to be pissed off and for you to be angry. Yeah, it may not serve you in the best way, but dude, it totally is justifiable. Like, I don't know about forgiving her. Like, that's crazy. She did that to you, type of thing. To whereas biblically it allows me to be free. I've never had any ill feelings towards her. It's actually allowed me to just focus on just empowering and living life and growing and moving forward through what I was going through, because I was able to have forgiveness and see her in that light as, dude, she's a human being as well. And I have to have love towards her. It doesn't mean I condone what she did, but as a human, she made a mistake just like I did. And I would want forgiveness from the Lord. And I extended that to her. And anyway, so there's a lot of things like that allow you to kind of just move forward in a very healthy way.
I love it. Where did you grow up that way? Like, were you Christian like your entire life? Your family grew up to like always forgive everyone and stuff like that?
Absolutely not.
Oh yeah.
It's a journey you have to go on as an adult, right? Even the biggest like Christian you may find or know, they probably will tell you that they either just found Christ through being at rock bottom and something crazy that led them to the Lord, or they were like what we say, like a pastor's child, or they grew up, they were raised in church. So my parents, they brought us to church and we were raised in church, but we weren't raised to know Christ, which is two different things. As a believer, we know what that means. But essentially, I just kind of did what we were told to do: go to church, pray, love the Lord, But you don't really know what any of this means. And if anything, when I was in college, I actually sort of reverted away a little bit. I was actually a little bit, what's the word for it, on the defense, because I just kind of experienced other Christians that didn't have a relationship with Christ. So it gave me a skewed perspective of what Christianity is. It must be like them, people that are basically, hypocrites. They're supposed to love people like the Lord loves us, but they're doing this and this and that. But at the end of the day, again, once you mature in your faith, you realize that they're just people. And just because people do things they shouldn't do, right, it doesn't necessarily speak to the Lord like that's his fault. So I just realized, like, yes, there's things that happen in the church that you may not like. Yes, there's things that maybe other Christians might do, but that doesn't mean that is what it means to be a believer in the Lord and to walk out in faith the way the Lord calls us to. Because when you do that, at the end of the day, your life's just so much better. Just like I just explained about how I was able to walk through her hitting me, as a drunk driver. So I found my faith through being in business from other individuals that I looked up to that were making tons of money. Again, I was in network marketing. So one of my mentors was making over $1 million a month. And a lot of my other mentors that weren't maybe making that high of income, but they were millionaires. They would always, anytime we were at events and they were speaking and giving out awards or getting awards, different things, they would always point back to the Lord, man. They would always point. I'm just like, man. So I was making, I was making better than okay money at that time in my early 20s, 23, 24, 25. When I was in network marketing, 5-6 grand a month type of stuff in network
Right.
marketing, traveling. So I felt like there was still something missing, right? Because I was making enough money, but I didn't feel really like complete. And I was like, I got to figure out what that is that they just feel sort of in just full with. And because it seems to be that is affecting how they not only but run their business and it ends up being well, but also how they serve their wife, and their marriage is better than people that I just generally, that I see that don't have that foundation, their relationships with people, how they serve people, all these different things. So I went on my journey myself, and it was a couple of years of really getting to where I am now with my faith. But
I
again,
love
like I
it.
said, glad that I did.
I love it. Yeah. No, I mean, it's something that I feel like I'm not Christian, I'm Jewish, but like I've
Nice.
seen this a lot in Christians where it's a good understanding of like exactly what you said. It's like you probably hurt somebody in a really drastic way. And also, this is just a thing about what I love about forgiveness is like um holding on to that hate or holding on to whatever it might be really just hurts you in the end. It doesn't help the situation at all. The
Oh yeah.
situation is what it is.
Yeah.
So like I get it, man. Like I also feel like I've had like certain traumatic things happen to me and I feel like always what eventually just did it was just being like, look, man, it just is what it is.
Yeah.
What am I going to do to move forward now?
Right.
There's like only really, the weird thing is there's really only that or like making it 10 times worse.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know if, do you agree with that? Like, does that make sense to what
Oh
happened
yeah.
with you?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, think if I was so angry and pissed off and yada yada yada, like, dude, that girl could just be living her life already. It's not like
Yeah.
it's doing anything to her. If anything, it's just setting me back, right? So the idea is like, whatever happens to you, it's not about what happens; it's what you do with what happens to you, right?
Right.
Because what happens to you happens to everybody. Now, not maybe that very specific thing, but the idea of challenges happens to everyone. Everyone has challenges in different ways. So that doesn't make us unique. We all have challenges. Yeah, some might be easier to see than others, but we still all have them. So it's just what you do with challenges in general. And if you let them be your story, then yeah, you're not going to move forward. But if you let the redemption side of it, if you let the impactful side of it, the breakthrough side of it, all that stuff. I mean, that can be your story, and it will move you forward rather than keep you captivated.
I love it. So, okay, so how did you recover? So, like, you're in the hospital for 1 to 2 months. Eventually, they're like, okay, here's what's going to happen. Like, here's what you have to do. Like, what was the recovery process?
Yeah, so like 1 to 2 months, going on 3 months, and then I went home for the next 3 months to basically do physical rehab. So the next 2 months was like, or next month and a half was like having someone in the house basically every day, or like a couple times a day. No, it wasn't every day. It was like three times a week. They would come in and just basically work on my body, just simple motions and things like my joints and pressure, being able to bear weight on my good leg, because at the point I couldn't put any pressure on my ankle because it was still healing, all the different things. And then it got to the point where I finally got fitted for a prosthetic. So I had to learn how to practice with a cane and a walker, and have a prosthetic on, and learn how to move my body through having this robotic leg and doing all that. And then I finally ended up being what's called outpatient therapy, which is now I'm like actually going to a place for therapy, physical therapy.
Right.
And that was at Roger C. Peace in South Carolina. Prisma Hospital, Roger C. Peace was where I did my physical therapy recovery, where now it's kind of like the fun, cool stuff I loved. I had the prosthetic on, they had the little, belt or strap around my waist. And now I'm like practicing like stepping over things and walking around and moving. And then, and throughout all of it, I was doing my own rehab at home. See, that's the difference too, is right. Like it's all about, it's always just about how much effort and, how hard you're going to work for something, because most people might, man, I just had a long day of therapy, I'm just going to go home and watch TV. But I would always be in the gym, I would always be pushing myself. My doctors would say, hey, don't walk around without a cane. And I'd try it anyway, just kind of pushing things. And I was able to recover much faster. than most people do. So my
And
full
why'd you do
recovery.
that? Why did you push yourself?
Well, I just wanted to get back to just, being able
Doing it.
to excel in life, right? I mean, I'm like, dude, I got kids, I got wife, I got goals, I got, life doesn't stop. This might have slowed me down, but I can't stop me. So that's kind of what that was. Yep. So it
Mhm.
was about 6 months in total before I was able to get back into doing calls and SMS and deals. And when I basically got back into being able to do seller calls, it was crazy. I actually ended up doing a $40,000 deal
Love it.
right when I got back, and that was a seller that I had already done that $30,000. Her name is Sheila. I actually remember her today, still Sheila. And I sold her a house, or the $30,000 deal was from a house that she inherited from her mother, but then the $40,000 deal was from a house that she lived in and she wanted to downsize, and I helped her sell that one to end buyers, actually, like retail buyers, but it was still kind of like a wholesale deal. And then that just kind of kept the journey going with more deals, buying properties, raising private money, and just kind of going full throttle.
I love it. This is just something I was curious about, like with the accident. I think I've almost asked all my questions related to that. This was just one that I'm curious about was like, obviously the negatives are pretty obvious of like what happened, but I'm curious if you can go more into like, are there things that made your life better from
Yeah,
it?
no, I love it. No, that's a
That's
great
like
question.
that's like I feel like a question people don't ask, but like
No, they
part of
don't.
me also feels like even though it was like a horrific event, I
Yeah.
bet there were some positives that came out of it. Can you go into that for a second?
So here's the funny thing. The only positives that came out of it were what I was able to make out of it, right?
Mhm.
Because the accident is negative and bad. Like you
Right.
literally got hit by a drunk driver, you're on life support, you have IVs, you're taking 7 to 8 pills every 5, 6 hours. My whole gut totally got destroyed. I was back in the hospital even when I did recover because anything I ate would totally hurt my stomach. I actually can't eat things now today because of what all the pills did to it. I have injuries I have pain all day. Like there's nothing good about any of that. But what good happened was because I chose, it's what you do with what happens. I chose to be a success story. And that has to be a choice. That doesn't happen by accident.
Right.
You don't become a success story just tripping and falling into it,
Right.
right? It's intentional and it takes a lot of hard work. So because of choosing to be above what was trying to keep me down, so to speak, right? If you want to say, um, what it did is it empowered and inspired people. And then the positive is kind of like how you and I are on this call right now. Because see, the same accident happening does not mean that I would be on this call with you. If
Mhm.
I hadn't been who I was, if I still today was struggling with depression, did not get up and get going, maybe got out of real estate, maybe tried to, sign up or try to get, disability, and I don't really do anything. I just have government paying me. And I'm like, and everyone would totally be like, yeah, I mean, it makes sense. Like, dude, look what happened to him. That's not fair. And ooh, me, and all these different things. Like, I wouldn't be, why would you have me on this? I mean, it wouldn't even make, what would I say that would be
Right.
inspiring? But it's because of what I chose to do with what happened. All of these doors really started happening. Now, of course, at the end of the day, ultimately, the Lord opens a lot of these different doors. Like I've had some really great opportunities and experiences, even still today. But it's not that the Lord does everything by himself. He likes to work with you. It depends on how you move, and he will guide those footsteps. He'll open these doors. So because of my attitude and how I moved and operated after the accident, it actually led to a lot of positive things. So yes, the answer is there are a lot of cool things, just like obviously everyone saw me on social media just this past weekend, and it's like blowing up on Facebook, which I don't use a ton of time, but I mean, literally this post is like almost 700 likes and over, I don't even know how many
Wait,
comments.
what's the post? Now I'm curious.
Yeah, and it's like on Instagram, there's like over, I don't know, almost maybe 150 comments on Instagram and like over 1,000 likes on Instagram. It was this past weekend, I was honored to model Tommy Hilfiger as a disabled, basically individual modeling Tommy Hilfiger during
Oh, nice.
Fashion Week in New York. So if you go on my Facebook, my most recent post,
I'm
or on
looking at it
Instagram,
right now. I'm
yeah,
gonna
on
show people.
Instagram, it's like that. Like, how was I able to basically able to, be invited out to New York Fashion Week, um,
Right.
covered by all these different
How
media.
did that happen? How did you end up on New York Fashion Week?
That's so funny. Yeah, they just reached out, dude. I mean, they just saw
Just
my
they saw you
yeah.
on like a podcast or something? Or
No,
like
no,
what?
no. I mean, you just see my social media. I mean, social media is an
Yeah,
amazing marketing tool, obviously. I mean, it's essentially like your new business card as a in this time and age. Like if you're not leveraging social media, I mean, it's almost like you don't have a
right.
business card, right? Really, like you might have a business card, but you don't really have a business card,
I
right?
get what you mean.
But it just really allows for people to see kind of who you are and what you do very easily. And a lot of brands, a lot of people, that have things are looking online a lot. Obviously, a lot of stuff's happening on social media. So they just emailed me and invited me out because they see kind of my attitude, my journey, my story, who I am, and they want me to be out. And yeah, I was able to model Tommy Hilfiger, and that was super cool. And so yeah, dude. I mean, it's stuff like that. I mean, there's so many other things too, like just a list of things, but it only happened because of what I chose to do with what happened. So it wasn't the event itself that made anything better. If anything, it really made things harder and worse, right? Like it actually has made my life much more challenging. But
Right.
there are really unique doors that have opened because of how I've handled it, if that makes sense.
It does make sense. So for anyone who's dealt with like a traumatic experience like that, like how do you do you have any other I know we talked about faith, which I feel like is like a huge one on making like a choice like that.
Oh
Do
yeah.
you think there's anything else that might help make someone, even if they aren't dealing with something that dramatic, like making
Oh
that
yeah.
choice of being like, no matter what's happened to me that's bad, I'm going to make the choice of making it um, better and making the life that I want out of this life.
Right. You're essentially you're a victor rather than a victim, right? You're going to be
Right.
victorious, victor rather than victim. The idea, if you want to not be a victim, is again, I know I'm not trying to convert anyone. I'm just using this as a example. It is a Christ-like mentality in the sense of it is others, not self, right? So number one, gratitude, right? Because see, what
That's
gratitude allows
smart.
you to do is it allows you to realize, like, yes, my injuries are pretty bad. Yes, I got hit by a drunk driver, my legs amputated, all these things, but dude, I can still speak.
Right.
Dude, I could have had a spinal injury where I'm literally just like this, and I can't even talk anymore. I can't even do anything. I'm like
Right.
crippled, really from head to, you know what I mean? Paralyzed. I can't even walk at all, whether I had a prosthetic or not. Right. So it could always be worse. So just
Right.
having gratitude, number one, right there, right? It's thinking about someone else. Man, someone else it could have been worse. There are other people that have it much more challenging, even though it is challenging for you. So number one, gratitude. Number two, these are all practical things anyone can do. So gratitude just means being grateful for the things that you do have rather than what you don't. But number two is environment, right? I mean, it's very obvious that it's kind of like when you have a strawberry and it's in a batch where a lot of the other strawberries are not good. That one that is good actually ends up becoming a bad strawberry much more quickly than just a batch of good strawberries. We all know that, right? So the idea is, birds of a feather flock together. And we've heard the phrases "misery loves company." Right. And it's the idea that if you want to be around winners, or if you want to win in life, be around winners. Right. If you want to be around winners, then, focus on being around winners. Don't focus on trying to be comfortable and be around friends and people that basically are just, dude, you got one life, man. You got one life to live. And it's crazy that I find people that spend most of their day talking to people or hanging out with people that are just not really doing much. They're not
Right.
challenging you. They're not empowering you. They're not saying, I'm not saying they can't be your friend or they can't excel. But dude, there's a lot of people in my life I love to death, but I just don't talk to them on a regular basis, not because I think they're bad or they're not good enough. It's just because I don't have enough time in my day to talk to everyone, but every day I'm intentional about where my time does,
Okay.
go. It goes to people that I'm either empowering or pouring into, or people that are challenging me and growing me. So I just don't even have enough time, even like all day today. I'm like talking to my students. I'm like working with them on their deals. I'm empowering them. You and I are on this call. We're doing this. You have a podcast, I have a podcast, we do all this stuff. And then after this, I mean, it's like 8 p.m. Eastern time. I'm going to hang out with my wife, 9 o'clock, 10, then we go to bed. Dude, I just don't even have time to just hang around.
Right.
Hey, let's go get a beer and go chill and hang. Like, dude, I just don't even have time for that, right? So you got to
Right.
get around winners. So number one, gratitude. Number two is environment. Number two is environment. And then number three is you have to personal develop. It is crazy how many people do not value personal development. It is just crazy, dude. You cannot expect to have something different if you don't do something different. So if your mind produces certain things in your life, which it does, a lot of people don't realize that, but it is only your mindset that has you where you are, then you have to change your mindset. You have to grow your mindset, because if you already were where you wanted to be, your mind would have you there. But the reason you're not there yet is because there's something in your mind, there's something you don't know, there's something you don't have yet that you need to obtain, that you need to learn, that you need to grow into to get to where you want to go, right? That's why you're not where you want to be just yet, is because you just haven't either discovered what it is, you haven't implemented what it is, whatever it is. And it's a mindset, it's an attitude type of thing, right? It's like Roger Bannister, right? The 4-minute mile. Before Roger Bannister, it was deemed physically impossible to run the mile in 4 minutes. But Roger Bannister's mind, you can go Google it, just type in Roger Bannister 4-minute mile. The doctor said, physicians said that your body humanly couldn't possibly withstand running a 4-minute mile. Dude, now today kids run the 4-minute mile. And it's all because Roger Bannister, because of his attitude, because of his mindset. It was his mind that took him where he wanted to go, which is running the 4-minute mile. So he trained differently. He spent around more time with different people. He just looked at it differently, and it produced that result. And then now everyone else can follow. But all it takes is one person. All it takes is you, right? You don't need a cosigner on your goals, right? We always say that you might need a cosigner for a car, for a house, but on your goals, you don't need someone else to cosign. All you need to know is that you got to work on this up here, the 6 inches between your head. That is like the longest journey for most people, is the 6 inches between their head. It's such a long journey for people to just, focus on growing within what's in the mind. And once you do that, it will produce the things that you want in your life. So
I love it, man. Like that last part was just, that's amazing. Like, I don't even know if I can add anything to that. I love it. Okay. So real quick, I know we're getting to the end of the hour, and you have a kid and a wife and all of that. So I don't want to.
3 kids.
You have 3 kids?
Yeah.
Damn, I didn't know you had that many kids. That's crazy.
Yeah. Well, so 2 of them are from with my wife. One of them was my stepson. So when I met her, I was immediately a father. And then we had Mila, who's 2.5, going on 3, and we have Milo, who's 8 months. So
love it. Damn, got a young family. Just quickly go. So after the accident, like what did you start doing? Like, what do you got going on now? You're talking about a community. Like, what is the community that you've got going on, and like where has your business gone since the accident?
Yeah, man. So it's just, no matter what I do, like I just naturally, I'm a teacher. I'm a coach, empower, a mentor, even though I don't choose to be a lot of times. It's just naturally what I fall into. Even when I did network marketing, that's kind of how I excel. That's actually how I met my wife. I didn't finish college because I was traveling around the country every other weekend on planes, because I was basically mentoring and teaching and training all of my my teams all across the country and the world. I had teams all over the world, in Spain and all over the world. It's crazy. And that's kind of why you hear me how I am right now, right? I mean, I've been doing this for so long, like, speaking and mentoring and coaching, all these different things. So even in photography, I did the same thing. And then, with my other businesses, but here in obviously real estate investing, it didn't take long before I kind of fell into that role. Not because I wanted to. I really didn't even want to become a mentor. I mean, there's so many things I'm already doing myself. I was like, I don't even have time for that. Especially when you meet someone like Pace, you're like, bro, I don't even have time. I'm trying to just build my business. But what I ended up realizing is I could definitely make time, because I was already doing it anyway. And it was actually taking time away that I didn't like sometimes, where I document my journey. And there's just people that are like, bro, how are you doing what you're doing? How are you doing what you're doing, et cetera. And I would just share with them like everything. I'm very transparent. I would just share with everything. But it got to a point where I just felt like a lot of times my time was wasted, because there's only so much time I have in a day, because I do not work past like 5:30, because I just value my family and I want to create boundaries, and I don't feel like you need to be working all day and every day. That's just me personally. Everyone has it differently. Anyway, not even going to that. But so when someone takes an hour out of my day and then they don't go produce, they don't go do anything, or they just kind of a taker, let me pick your brain.
Right.
I'm kind of like, I don't know about this. So what I just said is, look, I am totally willing to serve and help grow people and help them get into real estate, make money, and help their lives change. Obviously, I do it. I did it for free. I was doing it anyway. But I'm going to create a little community so that I know that these people that I'm doing this with on a regular basis, I know that they're committed. There's going to be a little bit of a cost because there has to be. I wish I could do it for free, but that's just, as human beings, we don't value free the same way we do when it's paid,
It's so
right?
true. It's just so true.
Yeah, so I'm not going to make it outrageous, though. I want to make it affordable to where, I just know that you're really serious about it. And I'm going to help you win because we're going to win together anyway. We're going to do deals together. We're going to win. And that's, to make a long story short, it's a community called Wholesale to Freedom. And the idea is it's not all about just wholesale. Of course, I talk about a ton of stuff, creative finance, all these deals like I'm doing right now creatively, and, fix and flip, wholesale, all these aspects of business and stuff that I'm learning. I just pour into these students. I help them get their deals done. I call their sellers. I do live calls. There's over 150 plus recorded videos that I already have that they have access to in the library. They basically can text me throughout the week. It's very hands-on because I don't have a community of thousands and thousands of people. Not to say if you do, it's bad. Obviously, we know some teams are absolutely ridiculously amazing, but there is a little bit of a, man, you kind of have to figure it out a little bit once you get in there. It's a big sea of a lot of information and a lot of things, to really kind of absorb. But I just like to kind of keep it small and, basically a little bit more hands-on and just kind of direct. And it's been really, really cool, man. I mean, I've helped, oh my gosh, single moms, teachers. I mean, one of my best stories, if you go on my podcast, you can hear one of my latest students, Marcella, who literally was like a teacher. And dude, she literally just did over $14,000 and wholesaling, and she did it in Phoenix, Arizona, and and it was here in South Carolina. She never even saw the property, went to the closing. And my house that I just bought for my family, a 4-bed, 2.5 bath, in Anderson, on 15 acres of land.
Nice.
I actually bought that from her and paid her a $7,500 assignment. So that was her first deal, was actually what I bought from her. She made over $7,000 with it. And I bought my wife and I our forever home that we're renovating right now, currently in full renovation and documenting on YouTube. But dude, so anyway, yeah. So that's the coaching community.
I love it. I just love it. So like, it's cool. Like I don't have a community, but I've also been thinking about doing like weekly Zooms because people also ask me so much for help. It's actually almost more time effective to create a community in a way, like create like at least something like where everyone can like get their questions answered all in 1 hour instead of constantly doing different calls. So what do we got? We've got a wholesaling business. We've got the community, a few flips. Anything else you got going on that you're
short-term rental, long-term rental, like again that short-term rental that I'm buying
all in South Carolina?
All in South Carolina. Owner finance deal that I'm buying in 2 weeks. So just buy and hold stuff, and then a bunch of other like income streams that kind of are through like social media, affiliate marketing, just the other things that I'm building, brands, YouTube, Instagram, affiliate, all these other things. But essentially we're at about 10 income streams, but that includes my wife's photography business that she has. So yeah, we did a YouTube video on like, the 10 income streams that we have that allow us or will allow us to basically live on our 15 acres homestead. And we're growing that. We're just continuing to grow that. We're always looking for more ways to just create income and stuff like that. So, but anyway, so yeah, man, that's kind of, but generally on the regular basis, it's just mainly, wholesale, fix and flip, rentals, just building the portfolio more.
Love it. Just doing real estate in general. I love it. Yeah. So, I always end the podcast with this question because I think it's one of my favorite questions in general because it brings out the best lesson that people have learned. So if you could go back to Myles, I'm going to go with the first business adventure. I think I'm going to go with the MLM because it's like owning your own business.
Oh yeah.
If you could go back to that Myles and tell him one thing with all the knowledge you have now, what would it be?
Truthfully, I feel like I did really well with staying focused, working hard. I excelled. That's how I met my wife because I was traveling all the time. I was making a bunch of money. It was really great. So it may not be what everyone's really like wanting to hear, but it just answers it based on through my perspective. If I could go back to that and you're asking me what I would tell myself, if I went back to that is I would invest the money that I made more. I just spent a bunch of money because I made a bunch of money. But if I had taken a good bit of those chunks of just money that I was making every month, just having these teams and growing these teams and invested in, trying to buy my first rental or try to buy my first. Now, again, everything, and that's just to answer the question. But the reality is that's just how life works, right? You got to
Right.
take it step by step. If we always went back and was like, oh, it would have been like my accident. Oh, if I just had stayed in the gym a little longer. Oh, if I just had
Right.
the gym, or if I had, everything happens the way it happens in that timely manner. And, I wouldn't really change anything when I moved back because, to be honest, again, I'm just kind of trying to answer that question. But to be honest, yeah, I wouldn't really do anything different, only because me kind of blowing a lot of that money, dude, I was in my early 20s, like 19, 20, 21. I'm glad I did that, buying Louis
Right.
Vuitton shoes and going hiking and just doing dumb stuff. I remember spending $780 on Louis Vuitton loafers. And I have a photo on my Instagram. If you go all the way down and see, I'm like hiking. I have like no shirt on, and then I have like these Louis Vuitton loafers on, and it's just dumb stuff. Rolex. I mean, just whatever, right? Just blowing money. But I'm glad I did that then, because I know guys that are in their 30s and 40s, and that are keeping up with the Joneses, if you know what I'm saying.
Right.
To where now today, I don't need to have all the fanciness to justify a great life. It is the time freedom that I have with my family and the memories that I create. So it taught me a lesson earlier on. I'm glad, rather than later on when I have the whole family and I'm doing dumb stuff like buying Rolexes, Louis, and stuff. That's just like, dude, you just don't need all that. Like, I make really great. I could totally buy a Rolex right now, but I just don't. I don't even wear a watch. I just have like this band, and I'm never gonna want to buy a Rolex. Because I've already done all of that stuff at an early age, to where I just know it doesn't do. I'd rather go take a month and go to Switzerland.
I love it.
I'd love to rather go to Thailand again, Canada again. I want to see the world. You know what I mean? So anyway,
experiences over stuff. I 100% get it. Yeah, man. I love that answer. I love how it's just like, in the end, not really anything, because you're exactly where you need to be.
Yeah.
So cool. What do you want to plug? Like, what do you want? Do you want people to follow you on Instagram? How do people reach out to you if they want to join your community? Like, tell me what we should be plugging right now.
Yeah. I mean, I'll tell people, look, I mean, at the end of the day, I mean, I know obviously we talk about Sub 2 a lot, and I'm sure you promote that. I mean, guys, just, you don't have to join my community. Like, a lot of times I just steer people away from it, because it's really only for someone who just really is like, dude, I want to have this guy. I want this guy working with me. I need you to mentor me, guide me. I love this guy's attitude. Like, when people are kind of like interested and they kind of want to know a little more, I'm kind of curious. I already kind of tell, yeah, you're probably not there, right? Like my community, because I don't have the time to sort of like drag people along. It's for someone who's ready to go. I like you. I want you to help me. I'm ready to go. I want to change this. And then we still kind of have a conversation to kind of make sure that, it's really the right thing, but because it's not for everyone, for sure. So, the only other thing I could say is, if you want to find just more information, you can just go to my website, MylesBerrioGo.com. There's just everything there. So MylesBerrio Go, MylesBerrioGo.com. It has everything.
That's well, right?
Yeah, there you go. MylesBerrioGo.com. I mean, that's pretty much, those are all the things that.
And then how about your Instagram? You want people following you on Instagram? You said you had a podcast? Like,
it's all on the website, dude. It's crazy. Yeah. I wonder if you're even able to pull up. Can you screen share and pull up with it? No, you probably can't. So never mind.
No, I can.
Yeah. Oh, no way. Cool. Yeah.
I can do it in a second. I just got to type it in.
Oh yeah. Type in MylesBerrioGo.com, and then
I can freaking do that. Dude,
yeah.
This stuff is, we got all sorts of crazy stuff going on. Okay, come on. Entire screen.
Yeah, it essentially has. Yeah, look at that. So it has everything. If you need to connect with me on Instagram, Facebook, it's got all. If you just scroll down, it'll have. That's the YouTube with my family.
Right there.
That's
beautiful family. Absolutely beautiful family.
Thank you.
So those are your 3 kids.
Yeah, that's Milo, that's Mila, and then
nice.
So, and then that's a little bit of my story as you go down. It'll kind of slowly pop up. There you go. And that's the car, by the way.
This is him. This is like that's the fucking car. That's you in the hospital.
Oh yeah, and then that's like
absolutely jacked, guys. By the way, he's a gym enthusiast.
Oh yeah,
works out every day. Like,
I love it.
Freaking yuck, dude. You look great, man.
No, I appreciate it. And then that's, other stuff. So RideAware, you can get some amazing gym stuff at a discount, obviously. Then it goes into just like coaching stuff later on and some other stuff.
You're on Netflix? What is this?
Yeah. So remember, I was a photographer on Netflix.
Oh, right.
Yeah, and then A&E, I was on one of the things that they filmed there.
Love
And then
it.
that's my story. You can get a video version of it, and then
Love
there's the podcast. I've been on, I don't know, probably over 20 podcasts. So if you scroll down, that's one that I highlighted. But all of those are podcasts that I've been on and more. There's other
Love
ones
it.
updated. But then
Amazing.
I have my own podcast, and you can go there.
Yep, right there.
Yep. And then if you're looking to break into real estate, there it is. Boom. You can just click there to kind of get involved in the community if you wanted to. But then, and then that's Prop Stream, and then that's my free real estate learning community. So there's no cost to that. It's just open to everyone. I started that like, I don't know, I think 2 months ago or so, and it's like over 400 people now. I mean, it's pretty dope. We do calls every Wednesday. It's pretty fun, but yeah, I mean, that's it, man. Everything you need to know right there, MylesBerrio.com.
Love it. Awesome, man. Well, dude, thank you so much for coming on. I really appreciate you as a friend and just like coming on to the podcast and like taking time out of your day because I know you're ridiculously busy.
Dude, it was so hard. I'm not even gonna lie. I'm really trying to get better with it, but like I was this close to just being like, "Babe, we can't do it. We just can't do it."
Well, I'm glad you came on.
Yeah, I had to. I was like, "Dude, Jonah, I got to get on with it. This is my, dude, you're my boy. I got to get on." So, yeah. but yeah, it's been crazy. There's a lot of stuff going on. So, but anyway, cool,
man. Then you got any last words you want to say?
No, dude, you were freaking great. This was freaking awesome. Thank you for having me on.
Love it. All right, guys. Next week, Thursday, I think it's gonna be Jamil. He got like really busy on the last one I had, but I'm hoping I get him on this time. He's gonna come on eventually. Like I'm just gonna force him to at some point. He's coming on, but I think he's next week, 5 p.m. PST. Let's go, guys. I will see y'all there.